It is Monday, October 10th, 2022. This is another edition of Baseball Today, presented to you by SeatGeek. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We got producer Dan along for the ride as well. The wild card round is done. We are getting ready for the divisional round, which starts with 4 games on Tuesday. We'll have plenty of time to dive into that during Tuesday's edition. But today it's all about a wrap-up of the wild card weekend. And Plouffe, let's start with this. You look a little different. What's up with the setup?
Well, as you know, I'm out in my studio. It's dark here in California. So my lighting is just a little bit wonky over in the corner where I do Baseball Today. So I switched it up. You know, the postseason, Chris, is about adjustments being made. And I'm making an adjustment.
Well, let's start with this. You know who didn't make enough adjustments? The 101-win New York Mets, who were ousted. They lost 2 of 3 games at home to the San Diego Padres. You know what? Let's start with this. Before we even talk about the ear issue with Joe Musgrove and anything else, I think so many people are going to sit here and say, well, what went wrong? You know, the New York Mets payroll is almost $300 million. They had Scherzer and DeGrom. They won 101 games during the season. Why can't we throw some love and positivity in the direction of the San Diego Padres? Why don't we try that on for size?
Well, because it's the Mets and they did have the biggest payroll in the big leagues. And, you know, like it's difficult when you get to the postseason. You can run into buzzsaws. And that's exactly what happened with the Mets. And yeah, you do have to tip your cap. We talked about San Diego starting pitching coming in. They were hot. Coming into the postseason. And that, you know, as a Mets fan, you might have just put that off to the side. But if you're really paying attention, that should scare you. And then it happened. Darvish had a good start. They got to Snell, but Musgrove was also hot and he was dominant. 2 out of 3 is all it takes. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, this is an instance where we always say good hitting or good pitching beats good hitting. And it did, man. Like that is the name of the game right now in the postseason. And the Padres starting pitchers stepped up and, you know, they were just better than the Mets big 3. That's the bottom line, Chris.
And in a 3-game series, it really can show, because if you get one dominant start at the very beginning, like the Padres got with Yu Darvish, and it was really interesting. Marcus Stroman tweeted out that Darvish is an artist on the mound. He really is. Like when guys, like when Johnny Cueto does his thing and Nestor Cortez will 1 or 2 pitches a game kind of does the whole hesitation thing, it almost feels, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, kind of shticky. Like it's weird. But when Darvish does it, there seems to be like a real rhythm to his delayed delivery and things of that nature. It doesn't seem like it's this and that and the other thing. It's just part of his repertoire. And I loved Stroman's tweet about it, because I don't think we've ever embraced how dominant he can be at times. Maybe in the beginning because he was so new, but we've forgotten about it the last couple of years since he's kind of rediscovered himself.
Shoot, I haven't. I got to face the guy. I mean, I know how nasty he can be. Like you're up there, and I've said this many times about you, Darvish, and I feel like it still rings true. I mean, it's very hard to have a game plan against him. Yeah, he does some stuff with his windup, and it does look good because he has a silky smooth delivery. It's beautiful, but it's his ability to mix his pitches up. Excuse me. Get some add and subtract velocity. You know, he has location when he needs to. It's just hard to pick a zone and to pick a speed to get ready for. I mean, you have to just kind of get up there and try to eliminate pitches the best you can. But when a guy has 6 pitches, what are you going to do? He was nasty, man.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get on to the ear issue where Joe Musgrove is just dealing. And in the 6th inning, Buck Showalter comes out and all of a sudden the umpires are, I love it when Michelle plays with my ears. It makes me relaxed and makes me kind of go to sleep at night. I can't imagine that. It makes me relaxed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No?
Sure.
Does Olivia ever touch your ears and make you feel good?
I don't relax, though.
You don't relax when they... Okay, anyway. I can't imagine Joe Musgrove was very relaxed in the middle of 35,000 people and a national TV audience while... I don't know if it was Alfonso Marquez or who had to do the feeling of the lows.
It was Alfonso, yeah.
Yeah. Well, afterward, and they, of course, discovered nothing. Buck Showalter was asked about the entire issue.
I'm charged with doing what's best for the New York Mets, and if it makes, however it might make me look or whatever, I'm going to do that every time and live with the consequences. I'm not here to not hurt somebody's feelings, I'm going to do what's best for our players in the New York Mets, and I felt like that was best for us right now. There's some pretty obvious reasons why it was necessary.
What was your thought while you were watching it happen?
I mean, I understand why he was doing it. Their team was getting dominated by Joe Musgrove, and he was desperate, and it was, an act of desperation. Yeah, sure, his spin rate numbers were up a little bit, but they weren't up enough. Okay. Like when you have increased velocity, when you're pitching in a massive game in the postseason, when your adrenaline's going, you're going to have an uptick in velocity and your spin's going to go up a little bit. So he was hoping he'd find anything. And at the very least, he was hoping to throw Joe Musgrove off his game. But Joe said after the game, just kind of lit a fire under him, and he was already going. So it didn't do what Buck wanted it to do. And then, he had to answer the questions. I thought he answered them the right way. He's saying, I'm trying to do what's best for the Mets. He was trying to rattle Joe, and it didn't happen. But we've had some hilarious scenes go on with like checking for substances. Like, didn't Sergio Romo take his pants off and his belt off and everything?
Sure did.
We've seen some things, man. And to have it happen like one game on a Sunday night in front of a national TV audience, we got an umpire rubbing a player's ears. I mean, baseball's gotten a little loony with it, no doubt.
So I was obviously at my NFL job last night, and we're watching the Sunday night football game on the big screen, and off to the side, I've got the Padres and Mets. And I look over there, and I'm like, what is going on? So I put my earbud in. I started watching my phone, and everybody in there, some guys are baseball fans, but most guys are so singularly focused on the NFL, they don't really pay attention. And guys are like, is that umpire rubbing his ears? I was like, yep. He's like, what's going on in your sport? And it's like, this one I don't know, guys. Sorry. Oh my God. It was bizarre. I suppose any publicity, even of this nature, is okay with baseball. I know some people were tweeting what an embarrassment this is. It's not. It's just part of the game. I don't like it when they have to touch players to check them.
He asked first. He was polite. He asked.
Yeah, he was polite. But once again, there's no repercussions. We saw this with James Karinchak and the Minnesota Twins when they asked to go through his head. Like, you're presumed guilty almost. Like, of course you must be cheating just because they didn't find it. And Bob Melvin made that point last night. He's like, the worst thing that came out of this is Joe Musgrove is as stand-up a guy as I've managed. And I don't want people thinking that he got away with something tonight, because he didn't. And I think we'll look at some people. I won't. You won't. Hopefully most baseball fans won't. But some people will now. They'll be like, oh, that's Joe Musgrove. He's the guy who got checked because he's got shit on his ears.
I don't think anyone will think that. He got checked and there's nothing there. I've said this before, Chris. Pitchers brought this upon themselves. Now, not all pitchers, but there was a group of dudes who were using sticky stuff to increase their spin rates, and the league had to do something. And we talked about that a lot. So maybe there does need to be some repercussions. If you check and there's nothing there, maybe you lose a challenge or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because, it can become gamesmanship, and we don't want that in the sport. We don't want that, kind of BS, like, let's get him off his rhythm. Like, that's not what the rule is intended for. So maybe we do that. We revisit that in the off season, but definitely, if you want to check my ears ever, I'm fine with that, bro. So
okay,
you have
permission. Next time I see you, I'll get in there. I'll really dig in too.
Dude, I used to get made fun of for my ears. Do you know that?
Oh,
I had big ears in grade school. My nose and my ears, man. I hadn't grown into it yet. So I'm very sensitive about this.
You don't have my buddy Andrew Siciliano type ears, like where they look like satellite dishes, right?
They did before.
Oh, okay. I know we're going to have to move on. We'll get through some of the other stuff a little bit faster, but very quickly, do you think that the Mets winning 101 games and then losing in the wild card round will force Uncle Stevie to push the panic button even more in the offseason?
I'm not sure. I everyone expects him to just go spend, but I think he'll be smart about it. He's got to try to sign DeGrom back. I know he wants to throw his hat in the Judge ring. Edwin Diaz is a free agent. Chris Bassett's going to opt out. Like, there's some question marks. The rotation needs to be addressed. And if you want to be in on Judge, I mean, that's going to take a Herculean effort. So it'll be interesting to see the way he plays it. I believe he'll focus more on the pitching aspect because that's just what gets it done in baseball these days. So sure, Judge would be nice and it would be great to steal him from the Yankees. And that's a massive storyline. Maybe he does try to go after him, but I think addressing the pitching is probably the first issue they need.
The key thing is winning the division, and they were leading it for 175 days this year. And it's just whatever can get you that bye is so critical because even a 3-game series, it could show you just how tough it is in a short series where one little thing goes wrong. And man, oh man, it just feels like there's such a significant difference between a 5-game series and a 3-game series.
There is, but they didn't even lose the division. They tied the Braves. It was a tiebreaker, man. It's crazy to me. Like, that doesn't feel right. I know they lost it. They got swept and it's their fault. And they should have done better during the regular season. But to me, it just doesn't make sense, man. It still does.
They had to win one game in Atlanta and they couldn't do it. They only had to win one or else they wouldn't have been playing until tomorrow. So
I get it. And you know what? That makes this whole thing okay to people. But if they hadn't played, those last 3 games, and maybe they played the last time in August or something like that and didn't play in September. I know that doesn't usually happen, but I think we'd be looking at it completely different. The fact that they got swept at the end makes it okay. But dude, 101 and 101, and then you just give it up for a tiebreaker. Doesn't seem right to me.
You knew it going in. So congratulations to the San Diego Padres. We'll break down their series with the LA Dodgers on tomorrow's show. Meantime, elsewhere in the NL, Phillies take care of the Cardinals. They sweep, held St. Louis to 3 runs in 2 games. Did we underestimate the little train of the Phillies?
I've always been talking about how good that Phillies defense is and that Phillies bullpen. I was giving them so much credit, wasn't I? No, I wasn't. It was crazy to see that, man, because that was a reason why most people were picking the Cardinals. Sure, Phillies got those starting pitchers. They can match up with anybody. But I said, you know what? That Cardinals defense is going to come to play, and I think they have an advantage in the bullpen too. Turns out it wasn't that way. Helsey was dealing with some stuff. Palante, I think, had some bad luck there in game 1. And then the Phillies defense really did kind of shine. Alec Bohm made a bunch of plays there, and the Cardinals defense got a little bit sloppy, and that was kind of the difference in these games. And to be honest with you, man, if they continue to play like this, the Phillies, they can actually shore up the defense a little bit and they find a way in the bullpen. Like Eflin, I love Eflin. He's a buddy of mine. I don't know if he's a closer in the postseason. I think it's a little shaky there. Right. But he's getting the job done. And guys can get hot and you can figure things out a la Daniel Hudson in 2019. So maybe that's going to be their formula. But they definitely surprised everyone. I mean, they're going to hit enough. The starting pitching is there. If they can continue to play defense and figure out the bullpen, this is a scary team.
Put up a 6 spot against a St. Louis pen, and in particular, a guy who just blows cheese, who keeps throwing the hardest pitch every time he goes out there in baseball. That was enormous. I talked a little bit about Gene Segura, and I thought that he was going to be a key in that series, and he just put the ball in play. I mean, who knows what the exit velocity on that thing was? 70 miles an hour, maybe?
I would say like less.
It was like a 16 hopper past Tommy Edman, and that's it, though, man. That's the way the sport's played, and it's beautiful and good for Philly, which, they erased an 11-year playoff drought. 11 years for a guy like Gene Segura to play in more than 1,300 regular season games and finally get a taste of the postseason, and now listen, they lost 11 of 19 against the Braves. The Braves are World Series champs, but they're going to go in there and they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to see that chop and they're going to be like, yeah, we've seen this. We're going to see this. I think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for Bryce Harper to really put his stamp on something. It's one thing to kind of take care of a St. Louis team, cute little rotation. Quintana, Michaelis, both pitch fine. But the Braves, different animal here.
You call them a cute rotation?
Yeah, because they're not as imposing as Atlanta's can be.
I get that. I don't think Philly is scared at all of this series. It's interesting because you want to have the bye, but what this series against the Cardinals has done for the Phillies is massive. I mean, they are confident now. We have already won a playoff series. We know what it takes. We're feeling good. We got another champagne bath, and you didn't. Like, I think that matters. Some of the momentum stuff does play in.
It'd be interesting.
Atlanta's a formidable foe, no doubt about it. But there's one thing I'm sure of, and it's the Phillies are not scared of this series whatsoever. And I'm happy for the Phillies fans who get a home playoff game, and the Mariners fans too.
1 minute on this. How sad are you that it's over for Pujols and Yachty and possibly Waino, who said he's going to have a decision very soon?
I'm sad for those guys, no doubt. I like that they got a hit in their last at bat. Like, Molina had a chance to go down and end the season for the Cardinals and his career on like this weird little note, but he ends up getting a knock. I think that's really cool. I don't know how important it is to them, but to me, I thought it was awesome. But dude, let's celebrate it because these guys played a long time in the big leagues and had a lot of success and are both Hall of Famers. And like, they're going to be around baseball. It's not like they're leaving and going off to, wherever. They're going to be around.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a great way for them both to finish. I mean, Albert nailed one down the line, and it took kind of a bad hop for the Cardinals and a good one for the Phillies. And then Molina to do his thing. And I thought it was great that it was almost baseball poetry where they each got pinch ran for, and they got one last time to soak it in. I know that they wanted to play on Sunday. It didn't happen, but I thought it was really, really cool. And so I was a big fan of seeing that happen. I really loved it. Really loved it. Once again, today's edition of Baseball Today is presented to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. We are running a special offer to all of you viewers out there. So the first thing I need you to do is grab your phone, go to the App Store, download the SeatGeek app. You're going to use the code JOHNBOYPlayoffs for 10% off your order, whether you're a first-time buyer or not. And that's a big thing. You could be a repeat customer, and you could still get 10% off with the code word JOHNBOYPlayoffs. So go download it right now. If you're not familiar with SeatGeek, it's a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple, and they rate them for you. So if you're interested in going to a baseball playoff game, an NFL game, college football, NHL is back, NBA is right around the corner, you want to go see your favorite musical artist perform, they're going to get you the best seats possible, and they rank them on a scale of 0 to 10 to make sure you're getting the best deal possible. Plus, they color-coded as well. On the app, green, like a stoplight, that means go. That means go get that ticket. Red means stop. It's a bad deal. Don't take it. You might end up sitting next to Rose or Plouffe. Not a great deal. So once again, go download the SeatGeek app. Code word is JohnBoyPlayoffs. 10% off the tickets at SeatGeek. And a quick reminder that tomorrow we do our SeatGeek question of the divisional round. So today we're going to send this out on our social media channels. We want you to send in the most entertaining, the most uplifting, the most thought-provoking question. We will pick one, and if we read it on Baseball Today tomorrow, the winner is going to get $1,000 credit on SeatGeek. That's amazing, Plouffe.
It's the best deal we've had here. There's no doubt.
Yep. $1,000. We're going to do it 3 more times. Once before the divisional round, once before the LCS series, and once before the World Series. So get your questions in about the divisional round immediately. We're going to comb through the thousands of questions you're going to send in today, and we're going to pick the best one. You get $1,000 credit on SeatGeek. We continue on, moving to the American League. Seattle sweeps Toronto, thanks in part to the greatest road comeback we have seen in Major League Baseball playoff history. What impressed you most about the M's series sweep?
Oh man, I don't want to use these big buzz hype words, but the tenacity of that team, they just don't back down ever. It's very impressive, dude. And I think they've just kind of been through a lot of different situations during a baseball season. And I even think that last year, something with this year, they played so many 1-run games last year. And like in those situations, like they're pressure packed. And you learn to deal with those situations, and you learn how to overcome them. Same thing happened this year. They were very good in 1-run games. And I think, that doesn't only play when the games are close, but you can start to chip away like they did in game 2 with that comeback. Game 1 was excellent. I mean, Cal Raleigh coming out and doing his thing in the first inning, setting the freaking tone of that series.
Yep.
I mean, I think that was maybe the most important at bat because it just shut the crowd up. And, like Manoah came, on the mound screaming like before the first pitch, like very fired up, and they just answered right away. And that set the tone for the series. And sure, Toronto got up massive in the second game, but then it was chip away, Carlos Santana with the big at bat, and then just a defensive miscue with JP Crawford's blooper. And that's it, man. Like they kept fighting. And I think that that's just kind of in their DNA. And again, like I sound like a talking head baseball guy, and I guess that's what I kind of am now, but that's what I saw, man. Like there was never a point in that game where the Mariners were like going to give up. The hitters were going to continue to have good at bats. And then, a little bit of luck, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that happens in baseball, man. They took advantage of it. And I think, to string together and get it back within 3 is nice. And you'd be happy with that. And you'd be like, okay, at least we're going to get to some of their better bullpen guys and we'll wear them out for the next day. But they made it all the way back. Then Adam Frazier with the go ahead. I mean, it was an awesome game. And I wanted to share a story real quick. I know we're running long. I was in my neighborhood that night, watching the game on my phone. I had some stuff to do with the kids, and another guy, a Mariners fan, in my neighborhood, same thing. He had the phone up to his ear, listen, and the look on his face, I'll never forget. He was so happy and elated. He's like, I can't believe it. They came back. He's listening to it. Mariners fans are fired up no matter where they are. I can't wait for them to get a home game. It's so cool, dude.
I'm a huge players guy. I've been criticized at times for being too player friendly. And I love hanging around the dudes. I love talking to them, and I love most of all watching them play. But the thing that's maybe it's not what surprised me most, but I want to applaud them that they went and got Luis Castillo.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of other good teams that A, could have gotten him, and B, should have gotten him. Or maybe A should have gotten him and B could have gotten him. Yankees, Dodgers, among those that should have gone. And they didn't want to give up the horde of prospects. It ended up taking 4, what we think are going to be good young players, including 2 in the top 100. And Jerry DiPoto said, screw it. If we're going to bust this playoff drought that we've had for 21 years, if we're going to make any progress in there, we are going to get Luis Castillo. We are going to sign him to an extension, and we're going to let him do his thing. Well, we saw it in game 1. He is such a tone setter when you win game 1 of a 3-game series, man, and you blank a pretty decent hitting team in Toronto. You don't let them sniff it at all. Woo! Good for them. Set the tone, and it took the pressure off of Saturday. Because if Seattle loses game 1 and they're down 8-1 in game 2, they ain't coming back there. That ain't happening.
I think that's what we've seen in these 3-game sets is that game 1 is just so crucial. And I guess that makes sense mathematically too, but especially for a road team to come in, get game 1. If I'm managing and setting up my squad for these 3-game sets, I am going all out for game 1. No doubt about it.
Very quickly, what's Toronto missing in your opinion?
I think you can say this about a lot of teams, but just I think more bullpen pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I think the lineup's going to be fine. A lot of those guys are going to be back and they're young and it's going to work out. They ran into a buzzsaw with Luis Castillo. There's no doubt about it. But I think the bullpen is probably an area where they could go out and get some guys. It's hard to do that in free agency. Like I said, when teams go out and try to land these big name free agent relievers, it almost tends to not work out. But I think they got to try a bunch of different things and just find a couple pieces that work in that bullpen. Because at the end of the day, you're not always going to get a 7-inning start, and you need guys that can close that game down and shorten it a little bit. And I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for them in the offseason.
So when Romano came in, forget if it was the 7th or the 8th. It was the 8th, I think. Maybe the 7th. I forget. He looked like he had already pitched 6 innings. He was all sweaty. His hair was all over the place. I was like, dude, you okay? And Seattle just took it to that pen. I would agree with you. But they were missing something. Offensively, I felt like there was another gear they could have gotten into in the regular season. And I don't know if that's because Springer missed so many games or because Bichette struggled at times. or Vladdy didn't repeat the season that he had in 21. I don't know exactly what that team was missing, but it felt like it just wasn't enough.
You're totally right. I think we talked about this a lot. Like we said, this team needs to get hot. They still haven't gotten hot in a month.
Yeah.
And I guess, 18-10 in September, that's hot.
It's good. It's good.
So like we thought maybe going into the playoffs, they were going to get there, but didn't happen.
Yeah.
Luis Castillo, yikes.
The hottest team in baseball in the month of September will now be continuing its journey thanks to a walk-off series win.
The right-hander's pitch. A swing and a high fly. Deep left center field. It is gone. Hello, New York. Oscar Gonzalez sends the Guardians to the division series.
Okay. I know.
I'm so happy
smiling
for you.
and beaming. I'm wearing my Guardians gear today. It's cute. There are some people that say a 0-0 game into the 15th inning where there's 39 strikeouts between two teams that really can't hit is bad for baseball. Did you feel that way?
It wasn't great. Yeah, it's not a fun game to watch, I don't think. I mean, there's so many strikeouts, Chris, and if you're a casual baseball fan or you don't follow the sport, you're like, why is it so difficult? Why can't they even make contact? Or like you start to think, can't you guys try to make contact? Stop swinging so hard. But if you are a baseball fan and a nut like we are, you just tend to appreciate the type of pitching that we saw. Like, the starters were great, obviously, but like Hench's coming in and going 3 innings, 6 Ks is awesome, dude. So I don't think it was bad for baseball. I also don't think it was good for baseball. The walk-off homer was cool. And your guy, Oscar Gonzalez, who there's a couple guys, man, and people are going to take this the wrong way, but there are a couple guys when I see them hit for the first time and they leave a massive impression, I really like it. Yordan Alvarez did that to me years ago. When I saw him up in the box, I was like, this guy's a stud. Alek Manoah, when I saw him pitch against the Yankees in that first game, I was like, this guy's a stud. I got the same feeling with Oscar Gonzalez when I first saw him hit. And I think I even told you, like, who the hell is Oscar Gonzalez? This guy's a beast. Now, he doesn't have the minor league track record to support like him being a Yordan Alvarez type hitter. But he's dangerous, man. There's no doubt about it. He's got pop. I like the swing. I think it plays. I think he'll make some adjustments. I'm excited for you, man. This is pretty cool.
It was tough to stomach. I could only imagine what it would have been like if I was a Rays fan and I had lost game 1 in the fashion that I did. Because at least on Saturday when I was watching, I was like thinking the whole time, okay, if we don't win, at least we've got, Cal Quantrill going on Sunday. It's going to be tough. Springs pitched a gem against us last time. And, when we loaded the bases with nobody out in the 6th and Jose struck out and then Naylor hit into a double play, I was like, fuck, this is Cleveland sports to a T.
That was tough.
This is it. But somehow Oscar saved our hide. I can understand it, why people might not have enjoyed it, and it wasn't aesthetically pleasing, but I don't give a shit. We're moving on. You don't bring your batting average into the next round. You just try and move on. And now we get to go to New York. And for people that don't know, I'm flying up there today. I will be part of the live stream on Tuesday night with Jimmy and Jake and the rest of the John Boy Media family. I'm going to be like Maximus in Gladiator, where I'm fighting like against everybody else. And I'm just fighting for survival. So if there's any Cleveland fans in the New York City area that want to join me in there during the stream and help protect against the big bad pinstripers, I'll take it.
Let me ask you a question, bro. You always ask me questions. I'm asking you a fucking question.
Yeah, what do you got?
How weird was it for you to see Corey Kluber on the mound giving up a walk-off homer in the playoffs?
I tweeted it out after an hour or so. I said, kind of lost in this whole excitement of moving on is the fact that it came against Corey Kluber, and I'm sick about it because he was such a dog in 2016. People don't remember this during the World Series run. Carrasco broke his wrist on a line drive. Bauer was playing with drones, and we had 3 pitchers essentially for most of the postseason, and he was the glue guy. He was like, screw it, I'm going on short rest. I'll go. And all people remember is that the Cubs beat him twice in that 7-game series. Well, he didn't have anything left in the tank, man. I mean, he was fighting through there. And there were some idiots, some stupid Cleveland fans that are like, well, screw him. We wouldn't have, he held us back in 2016. Those are people who don't understand baseball. He did so much for us during his time, and I felt shitty for him. So there you go. We got one more quick thing, and we got to get out of here. Mariners fans got together, and I love this, at T-Mobile Park out in Seattle to watch the series on the big screen. And when they got down, they started this thing, the shoe rally, courtesy of this dude, Ben, who just started taking his shoe and putting it on his head, and it started working. And so people were putting their shoes on their head. Are you in or out on that?
I'm 100% in on it. Even yesterday on Talking Baseball, I had a Birkenstock and I was about to put it on my head, but I know Mariners fans, we have a iffy relationship right now. So I didn't do it. But then afterwards, they tweeted at me and said, you're okay. You can put the shoe on your head. So I might be doing that. Not that I'm playing favorites with the Mariners, but I think that's a really cool thing. Shoeies, you take a beer out of the shoe, and now you can put it on your head too. I think we should do double the shoe effort there.
I'm not so sure I'm in on it. I am kind of freakish when it comes to shoes. And I would never do what you're doing right now by putting a shoe sole first on your head, because now what you're doing is you're contaminating your John Boy Media hat. Do you have any idea where the sole of your shoe has been?
These are my house slippers, bro. These things are only on my immaculate wood floors in my house.
Got it. So you would be okay with licking your wood floors, right?
Should I lick my shoe? I'm not doing that.
Well, that's essentially what you're doing. By putting the sole of your shoe near your head, you are getting particles that were once on the floor, and you're dripping them into your body function.
Chris, this immune system is A1, so I don't worry about it.
Okay, good. I hope you enjoy that. What do you have coming up on John Boy Media, you sick freak?
I don't know. So much stuff. I'm talking so much baseball. I'm going to do Talking Baseball directly after this. Jake and I will be recapping and then previewing the series. I know you and I are together every single day. I think Thursday you're out. We'll figure that out. But, dude, the playoffs are here, and we working.
We are working. I just taped an episode of the Rose Rotation. It will be out later today. Austin Riley of the Atlanta Braves, the world champs. He tells us how they're getting ready. We did talk to him about what it's like to have the bye, and he admitted it's been a little tough. Said, it's hard to go from what we had in that Mets series in particular to being down and then to throttle it back up. So we spent a lot of time talking about that, talking about being a world champion, $200 million contract extension, all sorts of fun stuff. He's such a sweet kid, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's quick. It's very digestible. It's less than a half hour, our chat. So it's really good. You'll get a chance to hear that. Quick reminder, get your SeatGeek question of the divisional round in. You'll be checking it out on our social media channel. Send it in. We'll pick one. If we pick your question, you're going to have a chance to win $1,000 in SeatGeek money to use on the app and go to your favorite baseball game, other sporting event, or concert. For our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, and the one and only Trevor Plouffe, I am Chris Rose. We'll see you Tuesday on Baseball Today.